Today we're talking Grand Theft Auto. This is a series that started in 1997 and has been ongoing to this day. It is probably the biggest video game franchise of all time. Not necessarily the biggest video game, I think that still goes to Tetris and maybe Minecraft, but the biggest game series ever made. I've always been a fan of this series, so without further ado, I decided to give you guys my ranking from worst to best. There will be a couple of games that won't make this list. For instance, Grand Theft Auto London 61 won't be on here. I have played it one time in the past, but it's basically just an expansion of an expansion, and so I didn't really see the point in adding it. Also, Grand Theft Auto Advance won't be on here either because it's kind of just a port. So besides those two, we're going to feature every other game in the franchise. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting with Grand Theft Auto London 69. This game is pretty much just an expansion of the first game, and it's just nothing really special. It's basically just the first game again in a different city. There's really nothing new to the gameplay, and it's pretty forgettable. If you played the original, you've basically already played this. Up next, we have Grand Theft Auto 2. This one is not really an improvement of the original game, maybe some slight graphical improvements, but other than that, there's just really nothing new about this game. It's just kind of there. I don't hate this one. I played it when I was younger, but it didn't really impress even back then. Up next, we have Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars. This one was kind of a return to form and basically had the original style of gameplay from the old games with a top-down style view, but with more modern graphics. I had this game on the DS back in the day, and it's really not bad, but the only problem that I have with the game is just kind of been there, done that. I much prefer the 3D style that was introduced in 3, and this one it just feels kind of old school. If you enjoy the OG GTA games, you might enjoy this one, but for me, it was kind of a one-and-done experience. Up next is the original Grand Theft Auto. This one was actually rather fun. Basically, you go around playing as these characters who just cause mayhem and destruction in order to pass different missions. The only game in the series that takes place in multiple different cities, including Vice City, San Andreas, and Liberty City, but they all feel pretty small and the graphics and animations don't hold up. A fun, destructible, top-down, free roam-ish adventure, but nothing really great in the terms of the franchise. A fun nostalgia trip, but not really much more besides that. Up next, we have Grand Theft Auto, The Ballad of Gay Tony, and The Lost and the Damned. I decided to put these two together because they're just DLC packs for GTA 4, and I know they may be kind of low on this list, but they're not nearly as interesting as the main story. While it is fun to play as a biker, and it is fun to work for Gay Tony, these two side stories kind of leave something to be desired. There's really no new city here. It's pretty much identical in terms of gameplay to 4, and it's just basically an expansion. There's nothing bad about that. If you like 4, you'll probably enjoy these games, but they didn't really bring anything new to the table. And it would have been nice if they introduced at least some different areas, but they're okay for what they are. Up next, we have Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories. This is essentially just GTA 3, but an expansion of such that takes place before. If you played 3, you've basically played this game. It takes place in the same city, only plays a different character this time around, and it takes place before the events of 3. It's interesting, and if you enjoyed 3, this is more or less just an expansion of that game, but it's actually pretty fun. Unfortunately, the game goes for pretty high prices these days, and is one of the more expensive games of the franchise, so is Vice City Stories. But it's still a fun entry and one that I do enjoy, and it's just kind of more 3, which I like. Next, we have Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories. Much like Liberty City Stories, this is just an expansion of a previously released game. This is more or less just Vice City, but a little more. Taking place slightly before Vice City and featuring an awesome Phil Collins concert, this one is a great expansion and one that I really enjoy. I do recommend the PS2 version of it because it plays a little better and looks a little better, but it is kind of pricey these days. Still an enjoyable game, and a slight improvement over Liberty City Stories in terms of gameplay. Up next, we have Grand Theft Auto 3. This is the one that put the series on the map. 1 and 2 were popular, but this really made the series a household name. Claude from the second game actually returns, and he doesn't really have much to say in this game. This did a lot of firsts for the series. It was the first that was fully 3D, the first that had a completely fleshed out environment that you could explore, and a large, massive city. It was basically the first of its kind, and it wasn't the first sandbox game, but it was the first sandbox game in this style. There were games like Driver before this, but they didn't really come close to this game's depth or magnitude in terms of world. It does seem kind of small by today's standards, but 3 really was a milestone, and without it, we really wouldn't have the series that we do today. Just a great game all around, and though it is a little bit dated, it's still very fun. Up next, we have Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I really do enjoy Vice City. They basically just took the third game and introduced a character who actually has a personality. Claude's fun, and it's cool to see Claude in San Andreas and a little cameo, but Tommy is just a much better character. And he's voiced by the late, great Ray Liotta. This game is basically inspired by Scarface, Miami Vice, and of course Carlito's Way, among other gangster films as well, and it's just a great encapsulation of 80s gangster movies and culture. Just a really fun game all around with an amazing city. And I love Vice City, and it's probably one of my, if not my favorite, locations of the franchise, and I'm so looking forward to going back there in GTA 6. A classic through and through, the first GTA game I played on Xbox, and one that I really love. Up next, we have Grand Theft Auto 4. I'm a huge fan of GTA 4, although I do have to admit I do have some problems with the game. I think that this was the first game that really made the gameplay feel the best it had and really improved it to modern day standards. The shooting has a great cover system, everything has a nice weighty feel to it, the driving on the cars is much better than San Andreas and the games that came before it, and everything has a very realistic tone and look to it. This is the first one where they really went for pure realism. The only problem that I have with the game, and the reason why it ranks a little bit lower, is because even though they brought the realism and the great gameplay, they really lost a lot of the depth. This game is just downright small compared to San Andreas. And the fact that you can't have planes or dive underwater, as well as little features that annoy me, like how Nico throws his gun away when he runs out of ammo, always kind of pissed me off. Don't get me wrong, in terms of pure evolution, this was a really great step forward, but unfortunately they lost a lot of that depth, and so it has to rank slightly lower than I'd like to put it, but it does come where it does in third place, and it's still a great game, and one that I definitely recommend. Which leads me to number 2, Grand Theft Auto 5. While I do think some of the gameplay is actually a little better in 4, such as the driving being a little more weighty, overall 5 is what 4 should have been, keeping the depth and scope of games like San Andreas, but improving on the gameplay, such as shooting and driving. Plus, the addition of 3 characters this time around, which include Michael, which is a sociopath trying to hide it while living a family life, Trevor, a full-blown psychopath who used to work with Michael, and of course, Franklin, who's just a guy trying to improve his life by any means necessary, and it makes a pretty damn awesome trio. I love the story this time around, and I think it's much more engaging than the story in 4, and I love the fact that they brought back a lot of that depth from San Andreas. I love the fact that you can actually go underwater in this one. Planes have been reintroduced into the game after they've been sorely missing in 4. And I overall just really like the story and feel of this one. Although it is kind of a bummer that San Andreas is actually smaller this time around. Not necessarily in terms of square footage, but in terms of areas. You only get one city in the country in this one, whereas in the actual game San Andreas you got 4 different areas. But I digress. This one's still great, and my second favorite of the franchise. But number 1 has to be Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. This game is just magnificent. I do admit that there are some problems here. Like, I think the shooting is a little bit dated, and I think the way the car's handled is a little wonky compared to modern games. But this game just had the most variety and depth. 3 different major cities you could explore, as well as an entire mountainous country-style area, and this game just delivers. The game has a huge living world that is just very nostalgic to me. And I remember when I first played this game when I was a kid, and I still love this game. I even got the definitive edition on the newer systems, and even though there are some glitches in that version, it's cool to play the game again in high def. If you love free roam adventure, you have to play San Andreas. It's available on PS2 and Xbox, as well as modern systems in the definitive editions. I love this game, and I think that the ultimate Grand Theft Auto game would be a game that has the gameplay of 5, but the depth of San Andreas. Hopefully GTA 6 can deliver that, but I don't really know. But just in case that doesn't happen, this will probably still be my favorite. But it is possible that it might get overtaken. Fingers crossed. Well, that's my list. I'm very much looking forward to Grand Theft Auto 6. And I figured what better time to do a ranking with that game supposedly coming out later this year. Let me know your favorite Grand Theft Auto game down below if you'd like. Or just tell me your list. This is a great series and one that I really enjoy. And there's really no bad game here, so they're all pretty solid, even the ones that are a bit lackluster. Thank you all for watching, and peace out.